Tell me something I might not know.
Things pass too fast in your life, George. Don't worry about that.
Do you think your parents ever lied to you?
You could go in the wrong direction pretty easily now. It might not seem like it.
There's a point in every life
Well, I guess you're a man now, Georgie. Sad, isn't it?
when your hometown no longer seems like home.
What a place. What would you do for amusement?
Beat people up, steal things. The usual.
When you begin to trust your instincts.
Why don't you take me home with you?
I don't think you'd be very comfortable.
When what you feel tells you who you are.
What do you worry about, George? You worry about girls?
You probably are in love with me, aren't you?
No.
George Russell is about to go beyond that point.
What's the matter with you? Don't you understand something? You're leaving. Now go on, get out.
So you can protect yourself pretty good?
I can take care of myself.
Can you protect yourself against one of these?
The way to get out of trouble is find someone with worse trouble and get them to help you.
Into a world of promise,
Just kiss me back.
danger,
What in the hell is the matter with you? You afraid?
and desire. Where he must choose between the way it's always been and the chance that's never been taken.
You're lost. But you think you're found.
Hemdale Film Corporation presents Dermot Mulroney, Lili Taylor, Valerie Perrine, Bill Pullman, Mary Kay Place, Burt Young as Art, and Sam Shepard as Jack.
Hey everyone, I am back again with another review, and I apologize for the delay, but as promised, I'm going to be discussing the 1990 drama film, Bright Angel. This is the Kino Lorber Blu-ray. This recently had a 2K master, and it was pretty good, much better than the previous DVD-R that I had at the time. Not much in terms of features as a commentary, but it does have a booklet essay that was actually written by the screenwriter himself, Richard Ford, and believe it or not, this was actually based on 2 of the short stories he wrote, and I'll definitely touch upon that later in my review. But speaking of the film, it's a solid watch, but like At Close Range, this film was definitely not for everyone because it's a drama. There does involve some bit of death. There's also some volatile and kind of emotionally disturbing people. But in addition to that, you also get some good acting. You also have some great cinematography. And best of all, I would say the music done by the composer is the best thing about this film. And starting off with our cast, we have Dermot Mulroney as George. We have Lili Taylor as Lucy, and those 2 characters will basically be our focus for a majority of the film. But in addition to that, you also have a great supporting cast. You have Sam Shepard as Jack, who is George's father. You have Valerie Perrine as Aline. You have Burt Young as Art. You have Bill Pullman as Bob. You have Benjamin Bratt as Claude, who is George's friend. You have Mary Kay Place as Judy, who is George's aunt. You have Delroy Lindo, who is Harley, who technically would be George's uncle. You have Kevin Teague as the man who appears in a couple scenes. You have Sheila McCarthy as Nina, who is Art's wife. And then you have Will Patton, who plays Woody. And his name is Michael Fields. Believe it or not, this is his first and only feature-length film. He would do a lot of TV work after this. He did shows like Veronica Mars. He did Sex and the City, and he did Law and Order. And the screenplay is written by Richard Ford, and then, like Michael, this is actually his only screenplay that he wrote for a film. He's basically, from what I researched, he's a novelist. He wrote several novels. The ones that I remember off the top of my head, one was called Wildfire, and then one was called Independence Day, no relation to the 1983 or the 1996 film. But apparently these were based on the 2 short stories that he wrote sometime in probably the 70s. They both were called specifically Great Falls and Children. And they eventually would be into a compilation book of short stories that were written in 1987. And for the producers, you have Paige Simpson, you have Robert McLean, and for the cinematography, it was done by Elliot Davis. And for the composer himself is Christopher Young, who I think is a great composer. Before he did all this, he did films like Hellraiser, Hellraiser 2, Flowers in the Attic. He also did the second Nightmare on Elm Street film, so he did a lot of kind of horror-themed movies. And yeah, he pretty much had a good resume from here on out. And so, for the plot of the film, basically it revolves around this naive teenager, George, who is played by Dermot Mulroney, who basically is trying to find his way in life after, graduating from high school. He's definitely trying to figure out and understand what the world is, understand certain events around him. He basically occasionally hangs out with this buddy named Claude, but eventually George and Claude eventually come across this drifter by the name of Lucy, who is pretty looking, but yet she has kind of a bit of a shady past and is a bit sketchy to a degree. But you get to know that despite the troubles, she does have some good intent. She does have a good intention of trying to help her brother out to a degree, which I will later discuss as my review progresses. But also during this time, George is also having to deal with some of his parents' marital problems, and it just eventually blows up. Valerie Perrine's character Aline eventually leaves Sam Shepard's character and leaves, in fact, with Woody specifically. And George, in a way, decides he kind of wants to get some answers, so he eventually meets up with Lucy and Claude again, and they both decide to take a road trip into Wyoming. And you later find out that she wants to help her brother, but along the way, Claude gets bored of both George and Lucy, so he's eventually dropped off to the next town, and the story progresses from Montana to Wyoming, where basically George will encounter some people that are definitely unpleasant and just twisted and emotionally far more disturbing than what he just witnessed. Going more into the plot, I want to show this one intense scene, very well acted by Sam Shepard. So I'm going to show this clip, and you'll see a pretty intense scene coming right up.
What do you do for a living? I'm in the Air Force. This your day off, then? No. What's the matter with you? Don't you understand something? I don't know what to do about you. I don't have any idea. You're crazy, aren't you? You goddamn crazy, man. Are you? Huh? Are you in love with her? Are you?
He's not in love with me, for Christ's sake.
Come on, say you love her so I can blow your fucking brains in the sky. All right. No.
Jack, let's stop now. Let's just stop.
You're leaving. That's why you're packed. Now go on, get out.
You're not making me leave. I'm just leaving. George has to be at work in the morning.
I'd like to find some way to hurt you. I feel helpless about it. Where are you from?
Chicago. A suburb of there.
Your parents alive? I bet they both wish you were dead, though. Somebody else is gonna have to kill you, because I don't want to have to think about you. Guess that's it.
Well, there you go. That was an excellent performance by the late Sam Shepard. May he rest in peace. And I would say this, he was definitely the best actor in the bunch. He's in there for roughly, I would say, maximum maybe 10 minutes. He's in the earlier part of the film, which takes place in Montana, which is like about a good 20 minutes or so before George, Lucy, and Claude take off for that road trip. And you can really feel the kind of hurt that Jack is going through the hurt and betrayal of doing his best to provide a better life for Aline and George, and for that to kind of really just all of a sudden just deteriorate and go from bad to worse, just to blow up like the way it did. You know, it's unfortunate. And Valerie Perrine, since I think that's how you pronounce her name now, I think I might have gotten it wrong the first time that I mentioned her name, but for what she was in, for the amount of time, she does okay, but there really isn't much to her character, unfortunately. That's certainly one of the problems with the film, which I'll definitely address, is the underdeveloped characters and them not really getting a good payoff, and you name it. But anywho, because of all this, because of the drama that's unfolded, this kind of deteriorates George's sanity, and he actually decides he ends up wanting to go and find her, and that's when he again comes across Claude and Lucy, and they all three decide they're going to go on this road trip to Wyoming journey. They stop somewhere where Claude does a little bit of fishing. George and Lucy begin to get a little closer. Makes Claude kind of tired of George and Lucy, so he's dropped off at the next time on the trip to Wyoming to help her brother out. You later find out that he's in jail for a particular murder/crime that he committed, and along that way you have some great scenery, you have some great cinematography shots, and I'll actually show that here in just a sec.
Your life, George. Don't worry about that. Let's go home back.
There you go. Great cinematography by Elliot Davis. He really captured the beautiful scenery in Montana. Like you saw the rural farmland. You also see some of the old school power lines, and specifically you also see the large scale old school oil pump jacks that would go up and down, and they would kind of roll like that. It's really great to see that, because I remember seeing that a lot when I was a kid, especially in my earlier childhood days. Sometimes we would go and visit my grandmother. She lived on kind of like the country hillside that was, you know, really a lot of farmland. And but I also liked how right after this, even though I didn't show a clip of that, we see kind of like the industrial side of Wyoming. And back to the story, whenever Lucy's staying at the hotel, George decides he's gonna visit his aunt. That's the main reason why he came to Wyoming in the first place, because he has an aunt that lives in Casper. He was basically hoping that maybe somehow Judy, played by Mary Kay Place, somehow was able to reconnect with her. And actually, in fact, George himself has not seen his aunt in quite some time. He also interacts with her husband, played by Delroy Lindo. He gets to know him a little bit for the time. He shows some signs of mental instability because of the fact that he's in a wheelchair. He's been crippled for a while. There's some kind of accident that happened to him. I'm thinking it happened on some kind of rig, I believe. He also served in the army, as he revealed, and that's why you see a whole lot of assault weapons in there. He actually shows one off to George, and then he has this moment where if someone came across to his house, he would just blow them away instantly. He's like, boom, boom. Pretty well acted by Delroy Lindo for the amount of screen time that he has. And while I'm not going to show this clip, I am going to show this one other clip that followed after, basically him kind of revealing a little bit more about George's mother and how, unfaithful, which I'm definitely going to show right now.
Things just draw you apart, I guess.
You haven't heard from my mom, have you? I thought maybe she might have called you. I thought she might even have come down here.
Where was she going?
Or my dad had kind of a blow up.
What kind of blow up?
I don't know about it exactly. They just got mad. She left.
Who was it with?
Nobody. She just left, that's all.
Nobody just leaves. Not in my experience. You leave by yourself and that's where you're gonna be. And nobody wants to be in that place, I'll tell you that right now.
Well, that's what she did anyway. You may not know everything about everything.
I know enough. That's for goddamn sure. She wouldn't come here anyway.
Why not? Why not?
Because she likes me too much, that's why not.
Harl.
Oh, no, even in this cripple's chair, she couldn't resist me. There's ways around everything.
Harl, now don't say that. That's not true. It's not true, George. Aileen never did anything like that. It's his mother, for God's sake. Don't lie about her.
I'm not lying about her.
Yeah, you are. You're lying about her. You're full of shit, in fact. She wouldn't have anything to do with you in a million years.
Why not? Why don't you think she would? Is there something wrong with me?
No, nothing's wrong with you. You're married to her sister, that's all.
Right.
She wouldn't do something like that.
Oh, they never do that, do they? I mean, that's what they never, ever do. I mean, they never like the wrong guy.
Ain't that the truth, man? I'm going to say this. To be honest, it seemed like George was having a bit of a simp moment defending his own mother, even though he kind of already knows what she's capable of doing, and he's just, getting pretty much the facts of life. Despite the fact that Delroy Lindo's character, Harley, is a bit crazy, he's at least speaking the truth about, Aileen, for example, and the fact that she is, she gets around. Throughout the rest of the film, as it progresses, we see Lucy interact with her brother who's in jail. He's basically, just judging by the looks of it, he's just not happy. He's really so determined to get out of there, or at least not serve any more time than he has to. So he eventually tells Lucy to meet up with his associates, who are played by Bill Pullman, Burt Young, and Sheila McCarthy, respectively. First off, we see them interact with Bob, who's played by Bill Pullman, who is kind of shows like he's kind of like a borderline psychopath. It's definitely a well-acted scene by Bill Pullman, who had previously done like Spaceballs, Serpent and the Rainbow, and amongst other things. He would go on to have a pretty good resume himself, and even though he's only in there for maybe roughly a few minutes, his acting ability and his portrayal really stands out to show kind of how high of an anxiety-driven he is, and how he really places an emphasis on trust, even though you really are not sure, because this, he's actually wielding a gun, and just shows kind of an intense side to him that this is a guy you definitely don't want to cross with, and you see how kind of how deluded and twisted he really is, and you see Sheila and Art kind of just playing a game in the background, playing cards, just trying to be chill and not disturb him or anything like that. And I'll definitely show that clip, giving a good example of how Bill Pullman can play kind of like a borderline psychopath. Let's roll that footage.
What's your name, amigo?
George?
How do you feel about this, George?
Good, I feel. Good.
I'm glad to hear it. Why? Why should I testify against anybody? I haven't done anything. Nobody's looking for me. Why should we trust you for a goddamn minute? Maybe I should just blow your fucking heads off, huh? Why not? Put you out of my misery. Or maybe I just best blow my fucking brain out. You know, maybe then I can think clear. Huh?
You don't have to trust anybody.
How can that possibly be? Doesn't the whole world work on trust?
You get out first, I'll get you the rest right after.
Don't. No. Don't cause me any anxiety, okay? Good.
There you go. Another solid performance by Bill Pullman. For spoilers for the rest of the film that I'm going to be talking about, if you don't want to watch this, feel free to stop and go watch the film yourself. And speaking of which, you can actually watch this film for free on YouTube. I'll definitely put the link down below in the description so you can watch it, or you can just search for it, whichever you prefer. But feel free to watch it, see what you think, and you can come back and watch the rest of the review and hear my thoughts on it. For those who have seen it or don't really care to see it, you can feel free to continue watching and we'll go on from there. Anywho, you get to learn the real reason as to why, you know, Lucy is wanting to, why Lucy had so much money, $6,000. It was really to help her brother out. Supposedly it was to maybe get him out of jail because of the crime he committed, but you get to learn that's not really necessarily the case. It was really to kind of prevent his associates from testifying against him. So that's why she proposed that she would pay him half this money, and she can send it to him in mail. And supposedly, you know, he might consider doing business with her or conducting some business. But later on, as George and Lucy's relationship does kind of heat up, instead of Bob, it's actually in fact Art and Nina that show up, and they end up taking both George and Lucy. They give some rather vague details of what happened to Bob, but then you find out that Bob is in fact dead. He's inside the trunk, wrapped in a rug with his throat slashed. Basically, according to what Art said, he was going to take their money and try to take Nina with him, but you know, Nina loves Art, so ironically she has more loyalty than George's mother, which is interesting. And then they end up going to this oil field where they have to drag the body into this oil cap where there's loose boards. They put them in there, and Lucy, being pretty vocal about this, she gets hit really hard in her head by Art's shotgun, which she starts bleeding. For some odd reason, Art shoots at George, but he blocks the gunshot with the loose board. He himself gets hit by Art's shotgun in his arm, and they both end up getting handcuffed to some kind of pipe, and they're both left there, but not before they're forced to pretty much give Art, you know, the first half of the money, which was $3,000, but they actually hid the rest of it inside of a bus station. They had two keys, one for the actual locker and one for, there's an empty locker, and they give them the key to the empty locker. And so as stuff is happening, Lucy's starting to shiver up because it's raining, it's a little bit cold. She starts to really feel like her life is slipping. George tries his best to kind of help her by putting his coat on her to try to warm her up, and they kind of have some last words of exchanging where, you know, supposedly he could marry her, but that probably wouldn't last long because they're totally different people, you know. And I believe she ends up dying, and they're later found by the police. He visits with his aunt again. They're at some fast food restaurant having lunch or something, and she basically tells him that he could have been killed and he could very well go off in the wrong direction. And that's what I kind of like about how this film kind of touches on that aspect where you never know where you're going to go in life. You don't know what kind of people you're going to meet. You can meet some really good people, or you can meet some really vicious, cruel people or just twisted people like you just did here. So like how that film kind of touched on that. And then George is back at the bus station. He gets the rest of the money in the actual locker. He tries to get a bus ticket back home, and he's kind of pondering on whether or not he should, you know, interact with people. And then guess what? Earlier when you saw Kevin Teague's character, the man passing out a job, he returns to the bus station again, and they have a conversation about work. He eventually takes him to some kind of empty room where and they basically have some kind of, I guess a test fight of some kind, because I guess he's supposed to be a man in the oil business or something like that. So yeah, they have this kind of test fight where George ends up getting the upper hand. He wins, and somehow in the end he ends up being offered the job, and he has this thought of what's going to be happening to him next, and that's where the film ends. And I'll actually be showing these clips pretty soon. Kind of.
Okay. I'm so cold. Georgie, I'm so cold. Oh, I feel weak. Oh, I must be cold. Goodness. Don't sleep. I can marry you. I could.
Whoa. I'll tell you something, I really like Italian food. Lasagna, vermicelli, più marsala. All right, son. Kill me? What the fuck is this? Here, pull me out of here. Pull yourself out. Well, no use taking any pussies with me up there. You look like a pussy. So, well, I don't get the job otherwise? That's how it works. Fuck you, how's that work? $600 a week. You up for that? No. 800. Okay. You got it.
There you go. That shows how far evolved George's fighting skills have come. Or technically, I should say, boxing skills. And I believe the main reason why George probably won that fight is that the man himself was testing George. Because, you know, from what I understood, the man was passing along jobs in the oil field. He wants to kind of see how George will take it. He wants to test his toughness, and in the end result, George wins that. And it's mainly because you see how fit he is, how skilled of a fighter he is. He even wants to go to college and just join a boxing team, and you see that he might be good for some physical labor, which is what that job more than likely entails. So that'd be a good fit for him. And as you can tell, I actually had the light on, mainly because it was getting dark in here, and I wanted you to be able to see me a little better, so that's the case. Now, overall, for the final film thoughts, it's definitely a decent film, but like I said, it's not for everyone because it's a drama, and there's definitely some flaws. Like, as much as the good acting there is in that movie, it's, like I said, it's really dialogue driven. There's not a whole lot of action that really goes on, except for maybe that brief little snippet in the oil field. And there's just the really big problem was the underdevelopment of certain characters. Even our two main leads kind of suffered that as a result. The character portrayed by Valerie Perrine as Aline, she's only in there for like a minute, and you don't really see her again. But technically, I believe she was in one more scene, which would have given, you know, the relationship between Aline and George some closure, and I have a proof of that. That's a still photo, and you can tell there's the bandage there. This would have probably happened right after George visited with his aunt and had lunch with her at that fast food joint. That would have at least, because that's the reason why he went to Wyoming in the first place, you know, not to just help Lucy, but to also get some closure and resolution as to why his mother just left and why the way she is. And I felt like we were kind of robbed of that. And it would have been nice if that was on the Blu-ray for a deleted scene, or any more deleted scenes if there were. And so that's essentially one of the problems I had. Another one was the underdevelopment of the other supporting characters, like the associates. You know that they're evil. They do have their acting moments, but one of them dies, and surprisingly, when one gets into a bit of a scuffle with George, Art, for example, you would think that maybe they would try to duke it out. I felt like that was a missed opportunity to maybe see, you know, could George outwit himself, you know, with Art's shotgun? Because, you know, Art mentioned, could you protect yourself against a shotgun? That would have been interesting. In a way, he kind of did, but I wish they would have had more of a physical kind of struggle, but we never got that. And that's a little disappointing. And even though I liked Dermot and Lily's acting, and they had some decent moments of chemistry, unfortunately, the relationship just, there was no payoff on that. I mean, there was one moment where things were getting heated, and maybe that the relationship could evolve and go somewhere, but it never went beyond that point. And so we were kind of robbed of any good payoff, and, you know, the character was essentially killed off. And I believe that's why Lili Taylor mentioned in a 2016 interview that this was a tumultuous shoot for her, because she had some artistic differences with the director, Michael Fields. She really wanted to leave the project midway through, but they wouldn't let her, so they basically forced her to finish shooting the film. And so she was probably disappointed with the way her character was going to turn out and have that kind of fate, and so she was really disappointed in that. It was the most difficult film that she shot in her career. But I think she did a good job acting-wise, as did Dermot. So, and I wish we would have had one more moment with Sam Shepard's character. I felt like George should have at least called him one last time, and if his dad picked up, and, you know, he's going somewhere, or he doesn't know how to do this, Sam could have said something like, or really technically, Jack could have said something like, "You're a man now, son. You go do what you know best." Something like that. That would have given a nice, good closure. And we never got that. I felt like there were some missed opportunities there for this film to kind of go in that point. But as far as the good things, I would say the acting's pretty much all the actors do a good job, even if they were brief. They put in solid performances. Sam Shepard's was easily the best. I like Delroy Lindo's character, the way he has kind of like a mental instability, but at least he was truthful about things. I definitely like, you know, how George basically facing kind of the fact that he's a naive teenager, kind of facing the world head on. He's reaching that certain maturity level of him being 18. You know, your whole outlook on life can really change. You can go in different paths. You can either go like a straight path where you can go into college, you know, get your degree, or maintain friendships, build on relationships, and, you know, you'll become successful in life. Or you can either go in this other direction where you basically go from job to job. Your relationships are short-lived. You have hardly any friendships, and they're short-lived as well. And you can basically go on the wrong path, and that will lead you to nowhere. So yeah, I kind of like how that film kind of touched on that aspect of that. And I really like the cinematography shots that I put in the form of clips. I think I like how it really captured the roughness of Montana, where you saw the hay, the power lines, the oil pumps going in motion and everything. Elliot Davis really captured those moments very well, and I like how the opening, you see the sky and everything and the sunset. I think that was very well shot. And best thing, of course, was Christopher Young's score. I really liked how he merged all the musical instruments together, whether it be a guitar, probably acoustic, or, you know, the flute, or any kind of other instruments that he put together that really created a certain kind of roughness. Like, he had two different parts of the music. Like, one was like the roughness of Montana and how things can be intense but yet beautiful at the same time, and then how things could be dangerous in Wyoming, and that sort of deal. And it's no wonder why Christopher Young would go on to have the career that he have. You know, he can really create some great scores. And I think Michael Fields was good in his direction. He was able to get some good performances out of his actors. You know, it's kind of sad that he never really did anything else as far as theatrical film-wise. This was his only feature-length film. I guess he had a difficult shoot too as well, and that's why he would go on to do just mainly TV after this. So yeah. Okay, I think that's honestly going to do it for me. Hopefully you really like this review. Hopefully you can like, comment, share, and give your thoughts, and maybe you might like this film. And like I said, I'll remember to put the YouTube link in the description so that way you can watch it for free. You don't have to pay for it. And yeah. Alright. And oh yeah, stay tuned for my next review. I don't know when that will be, but it should be coming up eventually, so there you go. Well, there you go. There's my review of Bright Angel. Feel free to give your thoughts, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.
They had nothing in common except each other. Rosanna Arquette and Eric Roberts in Nobody's Fool.
This is the best day of my whole life. I wish it would never stop.
Maybe it won't.
Think?
Maybe. A magical story that will make you love. A love story that will make you feel magical.